Mnatsakanyan. It's this name, which I'm really trying to spell correctly again and again. So Armenia, I think, is the recent case or a proof for attractiveness of some values and democratic principles of rule of law, which citizens in Eastern Partnership countries really want to enjoy also. So, what are the milestones in our relations? Is it already CEPA? Is this what is sufficient? What's going to happen in between Armenia and us in the future? Welcome, Federica.
Thank you very much, and thank you for surviving the torture of spelling out my name. Someone once asked my wife, why haven't she married Smith? But again, look, I also join all others in congratulating all of us on this 10th anniversary. It's a great birthday party, and that we had the turnout that we have today here in this room, the presence of all the leadership from the 6 partner countries yesterday, today, these all attest that everyone wanted to be part of this birthday party. Because it was worth it. And I think that also attests to the past 10 years being an important and interesting journey for all the 6 partners. And I specifically want to thank all our European Union partners, colleagues, who have been investing enormously in building up the concept and the success of the Eastern Partnership over the past 10 years. And Commissioner Hahn is here, Vice President Mogherini, thank you very much. President Juncker had a very inspiring overview of the past 10 years. President Tusk had his important message yesterday. We will now, we are starting the countdown to the next phases. And in trying to see the next phase or what is coming up, I think it is worth asking the question what the EAP is all about. As far as one would recall, it was part of the neighborhood policy. But is it just another neighborhood? I do speak to various colleagues and say, how does it feel? You have various gatherings, various settings in, working with other partners, other neighbors. The reflection, I think we all have this reflection that it's all about the same Europe. We're all in the same space. So it's all about Europe, therefore it's all about values, and it's all about people. That, I think, was very much the driving force behind the build-up of the Eastern Partnership. So one thing I think that we would need to further instill is that we're talking about the same space, space of values. And we need to treat it as such. We also need to proliferate the lessons, the values, because this whole project goes way back to over 75 years. Europe 75 years ago was a sad place. I represent a nation which has seen calamity of the big wars of Europe at the beginning of last century. That the concept of integration, concept of working together has been a philosophical thought for a long time, and then it becomes a practical reality. In this past 70 years, this message shouldn't be lost, especially today. Especially when we are all collectively observing some tripping on values, wherever we are. That I think we need to remind ourselves about what is the alternative. We do not detach ourselves. We are not just Eastern partners as neighbors. We are part of this entire project. So about avoiding the mistakes of the past, I think, is a very important message that we need to carry on to the next 10 years or next phases. We also need to recognize each other, I think, as such, as people from the same space. It doesn't need to be a relationship. There were mistakes in the past. I think the relationship of, the different degree of perception of each other, the different degree of seeing, us at different levels. I think we need to gradually work towards recognizing each other at a sort of an equal basis. We have a lot to learn from each other, a lot in every sense. We have been benefiting greatly from working within this setting, within this format, bilaterally with the European Union. The Eastern Partnership has been an excellent platform to extend this bilateral relationship to a multilateral setting. What happened in Armenia last year, the Velvet Revolution, was an outcome, basically, of this continued build-up of the kind of a country we want to have. And that was possible because there was a build-up of those institutions, the civil society, the media, the public institutions, the state institutions, that we had the capacity to absorb the shock and come out of this revolution so strong and so confident. This is all about the values we cannot put aside. People, we have to create as much opportunities for people to be in the same space together. So we talk about the specific instruments, VLD, and we have problems about it. It's like, yes, there are migration issues. Yes, there are concerns about, the people who are keen to abuse the opportunities. Does it put us back? Does it discourage us to move in making sure that it is not just the governments? It doesn't matter if we leave it only to governments to talk to each other. It doesn't work like that. I'm so encouraged to see so many people around and so many of my compatriots now in this room hanging out with their colleagues, their friends, the people of broader Europe, of the Eastern Partnership, broader Europe. This is how it should be. This is all about people. The Prime Minister was of Moldova, you were saying, the citizen, exactly. The people. So this is, I think, something that we have to carry on. The way in which, if we do accept this, then whether it is in the European Union, there is this unfortunate comment once made before the Commission was the way it is today, but an unfortunate comment many years ago, if I want to call Europe, who do I call? Now it's, I think it's easier to recognize the phone number. But at the same time, when we say Europe, what do we mean? And I have a problem every time when we have interesting debates in the country. And it's exciting to be in Armenia because we have interesting debates about pretty much everything in the country. And the point about Europe, what is Europe? What do we understand? What do you mean by Europe? It is also diverse. At the heart of it is what makes us together, is that we have collectively known the calamity of war. We have collectively recognized the capacity to build a peaceful and prosperous future. This is the message. This is what we are making ourselves part of. So at the same time, there are differences. We built our national security architecture according to the perceptions. And by security architecture, I mean pretty much everything, the way in which we see our country prospering, developing, building relations with others, and dealing with its physical security. We have different approaches. It doesn't make us more or less European if we do stick to values. So differentiation is what basically SEPA is about. We are very happy to have what we have. We know we have this practical thing in our hands, and it gives us enormous space to continue building our relations, building our country. developing our country, its normative base, its standards, its capacities, and so on and so forth, we have a good instrument in our hands. So let's move on, taking into account this element of differentiation. I think it is the European concept, isn't it? Unity in diversity. So that is another point. That we need sustainability. I would want to share that thought that was so strongly expressed by the two distinguished prime ministers of Georgia and Moldova, and I'm really very grateful for the point they were making about the sustainability of what we are doing. And over these days, over these months, rather, ideas are floated about what kind of institutional strength we can add to this project, worthy of thinking, worthy of analyzing. But one thing I think is what seems to be already quite attractive, is that if we do think about sustainability of this project, sustainability of what we're doing in our countries, then we need to focus on what the lessons of Europe were about it, and how we can get us closer interaction on these matters, sectoral cooperation, access to understanding and analyzing the way in which sectoral cooperation, with sectoral development happens. Infrastructure is extremely important for the sustainability of the reform of the development process. We are a country which has been investing and has full confidence. In fact, I do have full confidence in what is happening in Armenia about innovation in every sense. And it is not just information technologies and so on. It's pretty much everything. And what we are developing, the kind of experience we are developing in a country, and it is not just the government, it's the people who are doing that. We have been giving a good example that our partners in Europe want to learn from us, and that's a fantastic example that we can work together. And finally, it's all about, of course, peace. That is the project of Europe that was built in. Working together within the Eastern Partnership is another important challenge that we have to develop. We have unresolved conflicts. Working together, cooperating, regional cooperation, learning from each other, learning to work with each other is also a step towards peace. There was a point made about democratic Armenia, if it will be willing to represent, to sort of demonstrate a political will. Well, in fact, it works both ways. We also hope that the political will will be such that we will be moving forward, because it cannot be. There is no such negotiation in which I get what I want and what you want is negotiable. That doesn't work like that. So political will works both ways, and the environment within which we're expressing this political will is very important. And Eastern Partnership is a good way of creating such platforms in which people can get closer to each other, to reduce that sense of hatred, sense of sort of misunderstanding and so on, and see the benefits of peace in a better way. So there is a good potential for the Eastern Partnership in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And you have proven again that sometimes from the outside people recognize better what the European Union is about and even how it's functioning. So I would agree that meanwhile, after the last commission with Federica Mogherini as Vice President and High Rep, and with Mr. Juncker as the Commission's President, and with Donald Tusk in the Council, the numbers are better known in the world, and we have the pleasure to be able now to listen to the introductory remark, which are never coming too late to even influence the continuation of this panel. Thank you, Federica.
Thank you very much. And when we started 5 years ago, I remember, well, almost 5 years ago, I remember very well that the Eastern Partnership was probably one of the most contentious policies we had in place. We were with some of you in this room, starting with Linus, together in the Council. And the idea of having a policy that could have been seen or interpreted as a geopolitical instrument or a work on spheres of influence risks to be prevailing from time to time. And I think that is in these 5 years together, across the institutions and with our Eastern partners, each of them, we've managed to show that this has nothing to do with geopolitics or spheres of influence. This is not the way the European Union thinks and works, because as the Minister just said, it's all about people and it's all about a cooperative approach. And I think in these 5 years, I cannot speak for the previous 5 years, but I think in these last 5 years, 4 years and a half, we've managed to advance reforms, living conditions, opening, even dialogue and cooperation among the partners in the region. I think the compass we should continue to follow is the direct participation and involvement of civil society and young people in more specific terms. I've had the pleasure in these years, and in the ES we've worked a lot on that, to involve the younger generations. And I want to also thank our heads of delegations in the 6 countries, as well as the ambassadors of the 6 countries in Brussels, for the good work we've done with young people, not for young people, but with young people in our respective countries, bringing together people, as you were saying, making them feel normal to be together. I think this is the most exciting thing we've done in these years. And I am proud of having been able to do this together with all of you. So thank you for the patience, thank you for the flexibility, but most of all, thank you for an inspiring work we've done together. I know that when we started 5 years ago, 4 years and a half ago, some might have had some doubts about my dedication to the Eastern Partnership. I hope that in this 4 years and a half, 5 years of common work, these doubts have evaporated completely. I had never had any doubt about my passion and my willingness and my dedication to working so closely together with each of you. And I can only wish that the next 10 years can be as successful as this last at least 5 years, also in delivering to our people. So thank you for a wonderful experience we've done together.